the bank that morning, my daughter shoved a pen into my hand, and her husband dug his fingers into my shoulder until it hurt. "Just sign it," Mom Melissa whispered through gritted teeth. Andrew loomed beside her, his smile frozen for the security camera above us. My heart raced, but my mind stayed sharp. I slipped a folded scrap of paper to the cashier, my handwriting hurried but clear, "Help me. This is not my choice." In that instant, I knew my life was never going to be the same again. My name is Helen Carter. I am 68 years old, a widow, and I've lived in Seattle for most of my adult life. Until recently, my days were simple in the best way. I tended my rose garden every morning, swapping cuttings with the neighbor across the street. On Tuesdays, I went to book club where we argued politely over which character was most foolish in the latest novel. Sundays were for church, where I found comfort in routine and community. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and I thought I was safe. For decades, I believed that family was the one place where loyalty was guaranteed, where love was unconditional. After losing my husband, I leaned on that belief even more. Melissa was my only daughter, and I had welcomed Andrew into the family with open arms when they married. I cooked holiday dinners, babysat their children, and never imagined that the people I trusted most could be the very ones who would turn my world upside down. It started so subtly, I almost missed it. Melissa's phone calls came more often, her voice dripping with concern. Andrew lingered during visits, making little notes about my house, pointing out supposed hazards like the throw rug in the hallway or the stool I used to reach the top shelf. At first, I thought it was kindness. After all, who wouldn't want their children to look out for them? But soon, the kindness felt heavy, suffocating. Looking back, I see the warning signs everywhere, but at the time, I brushed them aside. I told myself they were just being careful, maybe even overprotective. What I didn't know then was that their concern wasn't about my safety at all. It was about control, about quietly shifting me from independent mother to dependent elder, someone easier to manage, easier to silence. And the moment inside that bank pen in hand, shoulder aching, was the brutal confirmation of just how far they were willing to go. My phone began to buzz more times a day than I liked. At first, it was little things, Melissa checking in to make sure I'd taken my pills, asking whether the grass needed mowing, offering to pick up groceries. It felt caring, almost filial. Then the calls changed. Her voice softened into a script. "Mom, did you remember to lock the back door? Did you forget Tommy's baseball game?" I would answer. Calm, and she would continue layering doubt like a patient painter. The questions multiplied, and so did the unease, until everyday chores started feeling like tests I might fail. Andrew took a different tack. He used facts and charts like a surgeon's tools. He arrived with printouts about seniors and scams graphs showing rising cases of accidental overdoses and statistics about cognitive decline. He didn't raise his voice. He sat across from me, fingers steepled, explaining how responsible families place protections in writing before anything goes wrong. He described power of attorney as if it were a small, painless signature that would spare us all future grief. The tone was reasonable. The intent felt anything but. One afternoon, Melissa arrived with a thick folder labeled Power of Attorney. The pages were highlighted sticky notes marking the exact places to sign. "So we can make things easier for you," she said, passing the packet across my living room sofa. I read the clauses and asked for time to consult my lawyer. The room cooled. Smiles thinned. They exchanged the same look I'd seen at family gatherings, an expression that said, "We expected your cooperation." After I refused their kindness, shifted into scrutiny. Visits that once brought bagels and laughter turned into home assessments. Andrew photographed my medication bottles and made lists of safety recommendations. Melissa's calls became a steady drip of worry. "Are you all right? Did you take your pills?" Worry can be a gentle net or a tightening noose. Theirs felt like the latter. The effect was unsettling and precise. Doubt crept into the edges of my days. Maybe I had missed a payment, misplaced a list, been slower with the keys. The seed of uncertainty took root and grew tendrils. Then the pill organizer incident happened. I reached for Tuesday's dose and found Friday's pills tucked where Tuesday's should be. My stomach dropped. I confronted Melissa, her face folded into concern as if she had found proof. "See, Mom." "That's exactly what I mean," she said. Her words landed like a small verdict. For the first time, I wavered. If my own medication could be moved, what else could be staged? The sensation of being gaslit is small and accumulating. It rusts your confidence bit by bit. Pressure turned into choreography. They didn't suggest a bank visit. They planned it with a calendar's precision. The notary was lined up, the bank chosen the time set for a Saturday morning when the crowd would be small and witnesses limited. "It's easier this way," Andrew said, with a look that implied resistance would only strain relationships. I agreed to go outwardly compliant, but inwardly, I was alert. I made a quiet decision to gather proof of my own. I called my longtime attorney, Michael, and described the pattern. His voice was steady as he told me to document everything and to avoid signing anything until he reviewed it. His advice felt like a hand at my back. I began keeping a small notebook of dates, calls, and odd incidents, every photograph on my medicine shelf, every grocery list rearranged, every phrase Melissa repeated. It felt like preparing for a quiet battle. The bank trip was scheduled for Saturday. I resolved to go, but with a plan, carry my notebook, keep my lawyer ready, and look for an ally at the bank who might see it. The morning of the bank meeting felt like walking into a storm I couldn't avoid. Melissa greeted me with her bright, forced cheerfulness, clutching a folder of documents. Andrew carried himself like a man conducting official business, not a son-in-law dragging his mother-in-law to the bank. The notary was already waiting in the lobby when we arrived, flipping through his phone, clearly ready to stamp whatever was put in front of him. Inside the office at First National Bank, the manager, a composed woman named Patricia Lopez, reviewed the papers. Andrew slid across her desk. Her eyes flicked over the signatures already marked with yellow sticky notes. Then she looked directly at me. "Mrs. Carter, do you understand that adding joint account holders gives them full access to your finances? They can withdraw funds, transfer money, even close your accounts without your consent. Are you sure this is what you want?" The room tightened. Melissa rushed to answer for me. "We've explained everything to her," she said quickly. Andrew leaned back with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I forced a pause, pretending to hesitate, letting them believe I was wavering. My fingers trembled only slightly as I reached for a scrap of paper in my purse. While Andrew checked his phone, I scrawled the words, "Help me. This isn't my choice." When Patricia reached for my ID, I slipped the folded note into her palm. Her eyes didn't betray surprise. She read it quickly, then looked up, her face steady. "Mr. and Mrs. Thomas," she said smoothly. "I need to verify a few details with Mrs. Carter privately. Standard protocol for significant account changes. Would you mind stepping outside for just a few minutes?" Andrew frowned, suspicious, but Patricia's tone brooked no argument. Melissa touched his arm, murmuring, "It's fine." They left reluctantly, the door closing with a quiet click. Patricia leaned in, her voice low. "Are you being coerced?" Relief rushed through me like air after being held underwater. "Yes," I whispered. "They've been pressuring me for weeks. I didn't want to come here today." Patricia nodded. "I believe you. Here's what I'll do. I'll flag your accounts for monitoring and make a note in your file that today's actions happened under duress. If there's suspicious activity, we'll catch it immediately, and I'll record everything from this point forward." When Andrew and Melissa returned, Patricia resumed her professional demeanor. She guided me through the motions of signing while her phone angled, just so captured the moment Andrew gripped my shoulder hard enough to bruise. His controlling smile, Melissa's anxious hovering, it was all on camera now. By the time we walked out of the bank, Melissa was humming, Andrew triumphant. They believed they had secured victory. But tucked in Patricia's system were surveillance flags, a written note of coercion, and a recording that showed exactly what they had done. I stepped into the cool Seattle air with my purse heavier than it had ever felt, not from money, but from something far more valuable: proof, the kind of proof that could change everything. The first thing I did after leaving the bank was call Michael Grant, my family's longtime attorney. Michael had seen me through my husband's estate after Tom passed, and I trusted him to be both sharp and compassionate. I sat in his office, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee I barely tasted, while he examined the documents Melissa and Andrew had pushed at me. His expression hardened. "Helen," he said, "this isn't just manipulation. This is elder financial abuse, a crime in this state." The word crime landed heavily. Part of me still wanted to excuse Melissa's behavior as misguided concern, but Michael was firm. "They're stripping you of your independence, and now that you've signed under duress, they'll move fast. We have to move faster. Together, we built a strategy. Step 1, petition the court to freeze my accounts until the abuse investigation concluded. Step 2, create a trust that would protect my assets from any unauthorized access. Step 3, prepare for a restraining order if Melissa and Andrew escalated beyond financial pressure. While Michael filed paperwork, Melissa and Andrew made their next move. I logged into my account one evening and felt my stomach drop. $20,000 gone. The transaction was labeled facility deposit. A call confirmed it. They had put money down on a room at an assisted living home I had never agreed to enter. They even scheduled a moving day. My own daughter was planning my exile, and she was using my money to pay for it. Michael was furious. "This is theft," he said flatly, "and we'll prove it." The confrontation came 2 days later at the very same bank. Patricia Lopez, the manager, was waiting with her file and her recording. Michael had arranged for a police officer to be present. Melissa and Andrew walked in, confident Melissa adjusting her blazer, Andrew carrying a briefcase like he was closing a deal. They didn't know the deal had already collapsed. We gathered around the conference table. Andrew pushed papers forward, but Michael raised a hand. "Before we go further, here are today's orders," he said, sliding fresh documents across the table. Effective immediately, all of Mrs. Carter's accounts are frozen. Any withdrawals made in the past week are flagged as potentially fraudulent. The assisted living deposit will be investigated as unlawful. Andrew's face went red. "This is ridiculous." She agreed. No, Michael interrupted, calm but cutting. "She signed under duress, and we have video proof. Coercion voids consent." Melissa's eyes welled with tears. "Mom, how could you do this to us? We were only trying to help." I stood then, my knees steady. "Melissa, I am 68 years old, not 8. I don't need guardians. I don't need managers. And I will not be treated like property." The officer at my side made Andrew sit back when he tried to lean across the table, his voice rising. "You're destroying your family," he spat. "No," I said, my voice calm and sharper than I'd ever felt it. "You did that the moment you decided money mattered more than respect." Patricia placed her business card in front of me again, her silent show of solidarity. For the first time in months, I felt taller, stronger, unshaken. Melissa sobbed quietly, Andrew seethed, and Michael gathered the signed court orders into his leather briefcase. The meeting ended not with my defeat, but with their exposure. The abusers had been unmasked, and the law finally was on my side. In the weeks that followed the confrontation, my life became quiet again, blessedly quiet. No daily phone calls questioning my memory, no surprise visits with folders of documents, no one hovering over my pill bottles. For the first time in months, I could breathe without someone else trying to manage my air. I returned to my routines, the roses, the book club, Sunday service, and each simple act felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. When I began sharing my story with other women my age, I was stunned by how many nodded in recognition. At church gatherings and coffee dates, I heard echoes of my own ordeal. Friends admitted their children had hinted they were slipping, that relatives had pressed them to hand over house deeds, that someone they trusted had treated them less like family and more like an ATM. What happened to me wasn't rare. It was part of a silent epidemic of disrespect and control. I've thought long and hard about the lessons hidden in all of this. The first is simple love does not mean control. Anyone who equates the two is confusing their own fear with genuine care. Second, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-respect. Saying no to being managed doesn't mean you don't love your family. It means you love yourself enough to demand dignity. And third age doesn't erase your right to decide. At 68 or 88, your choices are yours. That right does not expire. 6 months later, a letter arrived from Melissa. In her handwriting, shaky but familiar, she admitted she had started therapy. She wrote that she had confused her fear of losing me with love, that she had tried to control me because she was terrified of facing grief again. For the first time, she didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for immediate forgiveness. She simply admitted the truth. I haven't decided yet what forgiveness will look like, but reading that letter gave me something I thought I had lost completely: hope. If you are watching this and you have felt pressured, belittled, or treated as if your age cancels your worth, hear me clearly. You are not crazy, you are not weak, and it is never too late to protect yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. If any part of it resonates with you, please share your experience in the comments below. And if you believe stories like this matter, I invite you to like this video, share it with others, and follow Real Her Stories. No woman should ever feel she is alone.